Good evening. Good evening, boys. Good evening, parents. My name is Mr. Godfrey. This is the presentation for Latin for GCSE option evening. The course we follow is administered by OCR, and there's a link to the specification on the last slide of this slideshow. By the way, the last 5 slides or so are about quotes from boys about Latin and what they think of Latin. And if we don't get to them in time, you can peruse them at your own leisure. I hope to demonstrate that Latin is relevant to today, that it's important to study, and that it's very useful. In years 2 and 3, we've seen the whole case system of nouns. That's the way they use endings on nouns to express ideas such as of and for, which is fundamental to the way Latin works. And we've seen most of the verb tenses that you get at GCSE, and these are what I call the 2 keystones of Latin, the foundation blocks, and everything else fits on top of those 2 things. So if the boys are confident or feel that they have a decent grasp of those 2 basic ideas, they should be okay. They should be confident to do the GCSE. We've also looked at background topics, I suppose most obviously slavery, and we happened to be discussing it when it became a very topical issue again. And this is something that Latin has a habit of doing, of being suddenly very, very relevant to things that are going on in the world today. And of course, understanding the past helps us to understand our present. In fact, we wouldn't understand our present at all if we didn't understand the past. We've also done topics on gladiators very recently, Roman baths at the moment, Roman villas later in the year. We looked at Pompeii in some detail last year, and we'll be looking at Roman Britain later in this current 3rd year. So quite a lot of topics. The boys respond positively and enjoy the discussions, respond intelligently to some of the questions that are raised. As far as language is concerned, we know about 200 words. As I say, we can understand the key basics of Latin grammar. We can read quite a wide variety of stories, quite extended stories in Latin. We can translate a little bit from English into Latin. That's usually so that we get a better grasp of a grammatical idea. And we know a lot about most of the sources topics, and I'll mention more about those in a moment. In the exam, there are 3 papers. Latin language takes up 50% of the exam. That's translation and comprehension mainly. And then we choose 2 from these: Latin prose literature, Latin verse literature, and Latin literature and culture, which I refer to as sources. And we must choose 2 of those 3. They're each an hour long. This one is 1.5 hours, the language. So I always tend to take the verse of those 3, and the text for the current year is Ovid, or this year group is Ovid and the story of Echo and Narcissus, which is an absolutely brilliant account of that horrible story by Ovid. And the allocation is made up with 30 lines of Catullus, 3 love poems. Obviously, we'll be invited to compare the picture of love in the 2 different poets. Prose is a story about witchcraft, believe it or not, by Apuleius, a 2nd century writer. Again, very, very interesting, very motivating text. And that allocation is made up with 20 lines from Cicero about a dishonest banker. What I call the sources will be 2 topics: Roman Britain and entertainment. The boys will have specified sources to study, and then we will also look at sources on top of that to compare with those that are specified. Roman Britain topics: army, bath, villas, roads. Entertainment, a lot of these we've done already: gladiators, chariot racing, dinner parties, and theatre at Pompeii. For Timescale, the grammar will be covered in the first 2 terms of the 4th year. The vocabulary is practiced throughout the 2 years. The first option is covered in the summer term of the 4th year. Second option, autumn term of the 5th year. Language revision carries on once the teaching of that is finished. And then there will be revision of all 3 things from the middle of the 2nd year, Christmas of the 5th year onwards. We give support booster classes before and after school to boys who feel they're falling behind. And also there's a revision class at Easter before the summer exam. And I think boys who've lost out a lot through lockdown on class time, so this year group, your year group, will have opportunities to access further support. I'm pretty sure about that, and there'll be funding, I'm sure, that will be provided. We've organised visits to Rome and Pompeii in the recent past, not in the last 3 years, but we hope to organise another one, which is, of course, a fantastic trip with great accommodation, quite a memorable trip, in fact. And here are some things that the boys have said about Latin. Those that take it tend to enjoy it. It's not just me saying that, but the majority who take it do enjoy it. And it has relevance for, of course, other subjects: history, medicine, politics. Boy here is talking about CV, looking on your CV, and it's undoubtedly true that it does. Yet someone talking about learning about ancient Rome and how much he enjoys that. Boys here talking about the benefits that it's had for their English and with other languages. My English vocabulary has increased dramatically due to taking up Latin, which has given me a leg up on other students. Here boys talking in a bit more detail about the poetry and how it's helped them in English, learning what poetry is, because they don't really get that opportunity in other subjects. So Latin is something that they can do that. It offers things that other subjects simply can't. More help with other subjects, biology. That's from a boy who's got particularly strong interest in the natural world and botany and so on. We call Latin a dead language. As I've been trying to show, it in one way, yes, you could say, but in so many other ways, not at all. Very active, very important, very relevant. Okay, and finally, A-level. We've had a few boys doing A-levels in recent years. A boy here who did it, saying that he had doubts about taking the GCSE at first, but he obviously was glad that he took it in the end, because it brought him things that he could not get from any other subject. And in fact, 2 of the last 4 boys from St Ambrose to get into Oxbridge studied A-level Latin. And there's some shots from a few years ago of the school's trip to and Pompeii, Naples. Right, and there's the link to the specification. Right, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation and found it informative. Thank you. Good night.